The things that I have on the wall that I want to talk about and actually do maybe some work on in a very sort of passing way, just to show you some of the process that I undertake, is in some cases not finished, some cases it's very rough, in other instances they are finished pieces, but they're a good indication of where I am right now in my work, and where I am is somewhere between a kind of modernist interest in work that is somewhat obscure, formal and formally challenging, and on the other end of the spectrum, it's work that is kind of working its way back to a sensuous kind of naturalistic art, which has elements of impressionist light and color, elements of a kind of even an expressionist sort of emotional feel for forces of nature. And I'm working toward resolving these seemingly unrelated tendencies or stylistic ideas. Maybe they'll never be resolved. Maybe something will have to give and it'll fall away. I can't see myself willing that. I can't see myself totally getting rid of my interest in kind of abstract composition or non-objective quality to my painting or drawing. At the same time, I am being drawn to nature. These drawings here, for instance, are fairly typical of what happens to me when summer sort of comes around. I feel very free. I feel like the only thing I want to do is find some place with brilliant sunlight and brilliant color relationships. And I don't worry too much about it being art, although certainly part of me knows that great art was made in the same spirit and confronting the very same nature that I'm looking at. I also kind of reacquainted myself with figurative things in recent years, both the human figure and animals in particular. This is a drawing, which is fairly literal response, a kind of impression of a sunlit glade near my house with a kind of junkyard ambiance, some fallen tractor parts and things like that, and logs and an old shed where goats were living. And I did also some studies of goats, some things that were part of a project where I was going to do a kind of Renaissance Italian interpretive piece, and I worked quite a bit of time on it this summer, but it didn't come off. But that's the kind of thing that I do. I use drawing in a very traditional way. It's at least 5 weeks of the summer were spent doing that kind of thing. This is on the beach in Venezuela. And I've incorporated elements, even though I didn't do a project about goats, I incorporated elements. I incorporated some of the color ideas into some of the large paintings that are at Buckham Gallery right now. This is a drawing. These are in a Caran d'Ache water-soluble crayon. This is lilies in full bloom in my driveway. I sort of make a program for myself. There are these things that are around me that I looked at every day for a couple of years, and I say to myself, I want to make a small painting / drawing of that, and I do. This is another study that then got incorporated into a large piece. It's a colorful commercial beach towel that I was using and bought at a local shopping mall, but I felt it was unusually powerful as form. And later on, when we go to the gallery, I'll talk about the kind of interplay of ideas that the bowling pin motif, which we'll be talking about in a minute, and the standing figure, and the figure standing on the head, and the beach towel, which is a kind of erected form that at the same time is relaxed. There are these sort of paradoxes and complex interplays that I'm intrigued with, and that keep me from being a straightforward naturalist painter. I've always got to have some game going. Now maybe that is something that'll eventually change. The drawings, as well as being this kind of rather complete color study, are sketches often, hundreds of these things. I went down to the mill pond and did many drawings of the bird life, ducks and geese, and I was really trying to be as I tried to let myself go and abandon myself to the process of just seeing and drawing. It was enormously relaxing and enriching. I never got any ducks or geese into the paintings that I can remember, or that I can recall this summer, but I'm sure that the act of doing it was useful. Then, of course, that whole idea of going to nature and seeing the way light and shade and color can be the great designer, you might say. Nature is the great designer. I began to incorporate in a more imaginative way some of these same effects. This large shadow falling across a kind of sandy area with perhaps a puddle or maybe a shoreline. I always want that scale to be a little ambiguous as to quite what it is and where you are. I've been in tropical settings. I'll talk a little bit about a recent trip to Costa Rica, but I wanted to combine the symbol that I've been working with, the bowling pin that's been pierced and sort of wounded by an arrow or a spear. I wanted to combine that with some of the animal ideas that I've recently become interested in. And so I did this drawing. It later was developed into a large painting, which we'll look at later. I'm also interested in trying to stick to black and white, pure black and white from time to time, because I think it's an important discipline, and one that I enjoy instilling in and nurturing in my students, and yet I myself find it difficult sometimes to do that. I'll start a drawing in black and white and then I'll turn to color. So I was kind of pleased with myself that I was able to stick with pure black and white this summer.